Jeff Flake is a Republican senator from Arizona, but he's not having Donald Trump, kind of. I'll tell you at the NYE, he's a hypocrite on a lot of this stuff. But boy, did he release a book that is highly critical of his Republican president. Flake on Tuesday released Conscience of a Conservative. It is an ode to Barry Goldwater, another Republican from Arizona. A book condemning his party's willingness to embrace alternative facts, anti-immigration fervor, and Trump himself. There's a chapter called, in fact, "My Party is in Denial About Donald Trump." Let me give you a couple of quotes and then I will show you what he said this morning on TV. He said that unnerving silence in the face of an erratic executive branch is an abdication, and those in positions of leadership bear particular responsibility. He's talking about his fellow Republicans and how they are not holding Trump accountable. So, and then one more here, he says, "We have taken our institutions conducive to freedom for granted as we have engaged in one of the more reckless periods of politics in our history." Now, the reason why this is all very important is because once Donald Trump loses a critical mass of Republicans in Congress, then he is in a world of trouble if an investigation finds anything that he did wrong. And the way things are going, it is possible they will find many things that he did wrong. If the Republicans do not hold behind him, then he won't have any political capital and he won't be able to resist calls for his resignation. Now, we're a long way from there, but it begins on a road just like this, with Republican senators raising their hands and going, "I'm not with him." And by the way, Jeff Flake does not write this book because he is a person who's willing to put politics aside and stand on principle. No, he's a deeply political creature. Politics is his profession. And don't be naive about this. It is obvious that Donald Trump now is not polling well in Arizona. And John McCain, by the way, won his seat with a greater margin in Arizona than Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. So Flake is seeing the handwriting on the wall and saying, "I got to pull the chute and I got to pull it right now." He's among the first. He definitely will not be among the last. So to give you a sense of how much of a warpath he's on against a president in his own party, let's now watch him on TV this morning.
A conservative is nothing if, particularly in foreign policy, if he's not measured and sober and predictable. Our allies need to know that. We need to embrace and recognize our adversaries, and to do otherwise is not conservative.
Yeah, measured and sober. Clearly not Trump. So it's quite obvious what he's saying. He's, as he says throughout the book, he's reckless and a wild guy that is erratic and unpredictable, and not Jeff Flake claims not what a conservative is. Depends on your definition of a conservative, but certainly we all agree not what we want in our commander-in-chief. But he's got a lot more where that came from.
With regard to foreign policy, my biggest concern is, as I mentioned, we have always stood for principles and have done so in a sober, consistent, predictable manner. And chaos is the last thing that our allies and our adversaries need to be seeing. And I'm afraid they're seeing too much of that. And our respect for international institutions that we had a hand in or were the major part in building, like NATO, the World Trade Organization. These kind of things I think that we need to respect and utilize to hold our place in the world. And I wonder about our standing around the world now.
Yeah, now look, that is not a Democratic senator, that's a Republican senator saying, "I'm worried about our standing in the world because of how unpredictable and unstable this president is." And look, if you live in the objective world, it is super obvious what he's saying. But a lot of Republicans do not. Certainly the Republican politicians oftentimes don't seem to. So again, this is bold, and it gives you a sign of things to come for him to be this harsh about the president. But there's more.
I think to be conservative can't be to embrace conspiracy theories or to talk about alternative facts. There are truths that are self-evident, and we have to, as a country, agree on certain things. If we don't, we're going to have a hard time moving ahead and solving the problems.
Hard times ahead.
Look, in the past, the pre-Trump era, these were not controversial statements. We should all agree to the same facts and not make up things. and we should support NATO, our top alliance. Not remotely controversial. But now in the Trump era, he's like, whoa, a Republican saying that we shouldn't make up facts. Does Jeff Flake want to switch parties? I mean, people are starting to speculate. By the way, he most certainly does not. The name of the book is Conscience of a Conservative. He's just saying a conservative also shouldn't lie. And if you're a conservative, I hope you agree with that. He's got more.
But what were the big missed opportunities?
I think the Comey firing, the timing of it. You can fire the FBI director. Could have said that, hey, last year he did some things that he shouldn't have done. The way he handled the campaign wasn't good. But the reason given that, hey, the Russia investigation, that should have set off more alarm bells, I think, than it did. And I think going forward, we ought to be careful.
Of course. I mean, think about it, guys. He admitted to obstruction of justice in public. We've just moved on with our lives. And I know that the investigation is ongoing and you've got to give it time. They have to be inordinately careful, and they're certainly not presupposing anything. But the president said, yeah, I fired the head of the FBI because of the Russia investigation. That investigation is investigating him. He admitted to obstruction of justice. So here's a senator going, well, I don't really want to be on that boat. And is that going to come back to bite him? Almost certainly. So yeah, I'm a little concerned that he fired the FBI director investigating him. These are obvious things. But in today's world, it is significant news that a Republican senator admits to things that are obvious and what did I tell you guys? The minute they start heading out the door, that's when Trump's in real trouble. So apparently Flake thinks this guy is not gonna make it and I'm gonna be the first one off the boat. One last one.
And I'm very concerned about where the party is going and the anti-immigration fervor. That's not the place the Republican Party wants to be in the future.
And it's just image, I understand that, but image is important. There's a level of meanness to conservatism now in this country that's bothersome.
I do talk about that in the book, that you have to be meaner somehow, and that is not a conservative value.
Wow, you could have fooled me. Maybe it wasn't initially, and maybe Flake wants to get back to an era where we were having debates without a lot of the vitriol, fear, and hate involved, but that is obviously an admission on his part that it is his party that is driving that. Again, in the objective world, that's super obvious. But that also gives you a sense of the demographics of Arizona. Please, let's not be politically naive here. Jeff Flake is, of course, considering his reelection. And by the way, Donald Trump has promised that he will primary Jeff Flake and is looking for a Republican to primary him, and he will support that primary. So there's that bit of politics involved. And the reason he's saying, hey, then let's not do the anti-immigration fervor is because he's in a border state. In the old days, that meaning being in a border state meant that you were gonna, especially if you're a Republican, actually rally anti-immigration fervor and put that out there even more fervently. But these days, he's like, I see the numbers in Arizona. Is our party anti-immigrant? We shouldn't be anti-immigrant. We shouldn't be anti-immigrant. And now, finally, there's a lot of talk, but let's go to Josh Barrow from Business Insider, who points out there are Republicans in the Senate, Richard Burr and Chuck Grassley come to mind, who have been measured in their rhetoric but have taken substantial actions to hold Trump accountable for his lawlessness. Flake is taking a less impressive approach, complaining loudly about Trump and doing very little about him. So keep in mind here, Jeff Flake is trying to have it both ways. Whoa, watch out for Trump, I'm not on his side. But so far as I can tell, so far, on every single major vote, he has backed Donald Trump. So this is a game that a lot of Republicans played under George Bush, especially as he became more and more unpopular. Well, I'm a little concerned about George Bush. Tax cuts for the rich that George Bush is pushing? Yes, 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 yes. You cuts to programs? Yes, 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 yes. So eventually, Senator Flake, these words are good and important and interesting, but you're gonna have to back them up. If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.